Today is Tuesday, April 25th, and this is the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education meeting. Will you please all stand for the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we get to our wonderful art presentation, we just need to approve the agenda for the evening. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Okay, a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so I'd like to call Ms. Spearman up tonight to present to us her wonderful students and their art and all of their accomplishments.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our annual art show, where we celebrate our creative community and showcase wonderful artworks that grades pre-K to 12 created. I'm Sandy Fearman. I'm the elementary art teacher at Buchanan-Verplank Elementary School and also Furnace Woods. And I just have a couple words to say about art. Art teaches students' brains how to think and develop. It involves more than just imparting information. It requires taking an idea or a project and making it one's own. By nature, this instills an ability for creativity and adaptation in our students. The students of our community need to have their creative minds properly nurtured and cultivated. Given the changes that AI will bring to the workforce over the next 30 years, adaptive creative thinking is more important than ever. And we're on the verge of a seismic shift in technology. Children who learn to adapt and think creatively will be miles ahead of their peers when they enter the workforce. Our duty as a community is to give students the best foundation for success in their lives. And with proper guidance, students can transform from thinking a project is impossible to realizing that not only can they do it, but it's also enjoyable to take on seemingly insurmountable challenges. Art gives kids the opportunity to express and grow in ways they never thought possible. Our education expands the universe inside a child's mind. And to quote Simon Sinek, intelligence looks for what is known to solve problems. Creativity looks for what is unknown to discover possibilities. And with that, I'm delighted to introduce, I believe we have one of our Hendrick Hudson High School students. We have two more that may show up at their track meet, like my sons. And so they come running in. We'll introduce them. But here's Layla Mitchell.
Thank you. So I just wanted to say thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to show my work in an exhibit. I feel like over this whole year, I've become more open to new experiences, and in turn that's helped me improve my work and explore new ideas. And I really wanted to express more of that in my speech. So when you look at my art, I hope a pretty picture is not the only thing you see. To stand here in front of all of you and say that I'm proud of what I've created is something I never would have imagined. That's the focus of my art, the ever-changing concept of identity and how we grow. Cultivating my academic and artistic prowess here at Hendrick Hudson has taught me not only how to be a hardworking student, but how to appreciate and express who I am. In each brush stroke and every splash of paint, I see a piece of myself from the past and present. From my work, I realize how much I've grown as an artist and as a person. Although I am still growing, I realize I am more than the person I am today. I am a culmination of expanding ideas and experiences. Tomorrow, I may not even be the same person that I present you with right now. Life is an experience that I always want to be learning from. I think that's such a beautiful thing, to always be changing and growing. Our life is what we make of it, and it's time I explore my own. The proof I show of that is in front of you right now. I hope my art helps everybody here appreciate life's endless opportunities as well.
Are you able to point out your art in the room for us?
Oh yes, sorry.
That's okay.
So, this piece is obviously mine, and also this piece. And what I did in my pieces is I collaged fake plants and I also collaged poetry onto this piece because I wanted to relate this poetry about rebirth and the experiences I've had and how that's contributed to the personality that I have now and what my perspective is about how I live my life and how I want to continue living it moving forward. And in this piece right here, oh, sorry about that. I explored the complexity of human personality, and I wanted to show that in some ways it can be nonsensical, but that's what makes us humans, and that's the beauty of it all. I wanted to show that no matter how nonsensical, no matter how odd it may be, it's all connected to who we are. And I really wanted to show that throughout my work.
Amazing.
Our other students are
Awesome, wonderful job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good job. All right, that's all for art tonight. All right, we'll take a peek around before we leave. All right. Okay, before we move on with our agenda this evening, the board wishes to provide the community with an update on Superintendent Hochreiter. The Board of Education wishes to announce that Superintendent Joe Hochreiter has resigned from his position with the district effective June 30th, 2023. Dr. Laura will remain acting superintendent until such time. The board wishes to thank Mr. Hochreiter for his 10 years of dedicated service to the students of the district. The Board of Education will engage in a search for a new superintendent. Details regarding the search process will be provided in the upcoming weeks. It is our hope that we can find our next educational leader to assist us in moving the district forward for the start of the new school year. All right, we're going to begin with audience comments for both non-agenda and agenda items.
Our first speaker is Francois Barcon.
Okay.
Hi, members of the Board of Education. My name is Francois Barkham. I'm a physics teacher at the high school, and I'm the first vice president of the HHEA. On behalf of the HHEA, I'd like to thank you for your decision to table the discussion of reorganization of the elementary schools until December 2023. A decision of this magnitude requires transparency, communication, and discussion among the various stakeholder groups. Some of the board members in their recent comments expressed their dissatisfaction with the process used during the initial adoption of the present plan. I would suggest that your decision now allows you time in order to do better than that. You now have time to survey the community and the staff about their attitudes about the various models that could be proposed. You could then publish the results so everyone would know what the opinions of the parents and other stakeholders of the district are. You now have time to gather data about the present plan. We've just started state testing in many of the schools, and you can get those numbers to compare them to previous years. You now have time to allow administrators to generate more detailed models how the various plans might be implemented and what their associated costs would be. Detailed transportation plans could also be developed, and these too would help inform discussion on the various models. You now have time to form committees of stakeholders with more community members from various neighborhoods in the district, even those without school-age children who might have an interest in tax rates and the overall budget. If you would like the results of these committees to be reported directly to the board or broadcast to the community, that is also your prerogative. You now have time to hold multiple public forums at various times and locations, not just one-way comments made at Board of Education meetings. The HHEA and other unions, I imagine, are here willing to work with the board to figure out how to offer the best education for yours and some of our children. Please use our knowledge and our experience to help you make the correct decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bill Walsh.
I just Good evening. Just a couple of quick things. Having questioned the board in advance in the last two meetings, do want to thank the board for its decision with regard to or grade year banding and what the board was going to do. Appreciate the determination that the board made in taking time to actually consider issues. To the extent that the board does look for community assistance on that, if nothing else, having transitioned 7 times between 8 buildings in 13 years as a student, happy to volunteer my time. Otherwise, I have a couple of quick points. First, with regard to the budget, the idea of the budget being available in the library is one that probably predates computers, given the shallowness of the paper length of the budget these days. It would be helpful if a PDF was available that people could go to the district website and just click on it and find it. Didn't see it there, may have missed it, but that would make it much easier than everyone coming to the library. Second, there's on the consent agenda of BOCE's contract today for $600,000 for computer assistance. The contract references being able to continue to lease the equipment after the initial 600 plus interest is paid off. The technology budget presentation back in January indicated BOCES was going to be assisting for service, not equipment. So what I'm not clear on is whether this is an additional BOCES contract or something else. I would just appreciate some clarification on that. Finally, after the last board meeting, there was, based on rumor, apparently, a number of probationary teachers who did not have their contracts renewed. What happened and what its role is with regard to the budget is unfortunately a source of rumor because there was a definite lack of clarity in the budget presentation. Would appreciate if the board could clarify tonight the number of probationary teachers impacted, the impact on the high school curriculum, and the impact on Blue Mountain's curriculum as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want me to do it now?
No, we'll
Consent?
do it.
That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're moving on. That's it for the speaker. We're moving on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything to pull? Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please? Anybody?
Oh, sorry.
Can I have a second? All in favor? All in favor?
Aye. It's hard to see.
I know, it is weird when you're in a straight line. All right, we believe we have one donation that was pulled off the consent agenda for review. Okay. A Furnace Woods parent has donated a fish tank and 6 fish, approximately $500 for the Furnace Woods Elementary School lobby, which is awesome. They currently have a bigger fish tank and fish, so we're making a full aquarium. That's wonderful. Can I have a motion to approve the donation?
So,
Everybody's volunteering now. Second?
Sure.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Great. Okay, so now we're at the superintendent's report.
if I was going to address these items anyway, I don't know if you want to use that or not.
Sure.
It doesn't matter. That's all. And so, since I was going to do that anyway, is it the phones?
It might be a feedback loop from the speakers.
Why don't you speak loud?
I'll just do it here, and I'll just speak. That's good. I was going to address those, but I'm just wondering if Henry, could you want to just deal with the BOCES contract question? That on the $600 that are lease, it's BOCES, and we get 8 on it. You want to just speak to it?
I thought that during our technology presentation, we made it very clear that a lot of the money was going to be moved to BOCES. It was very clear. So yes, it's not only services, it's also equipment.
So what we're trying to do is, as part of the budget process, was move as much as we can of things that we've been doing in the past and spending money outside of BOCES. By putting it through BOCES, there's state aid available, and our state aid is around 35–40%?
40%.
40%. So it's a sizable amount. So on, say, 600, you'll probably see 240 in revenue the following year. So it's always paid a year after. And we can certainly look at having a PDF available. It's not a bad thing to put on the webpage. I assume we could do that. So we'll take care of that too. On the questions relative to the staff layoffs and so on, all along we had indicated that what we would do is take a careful examination and look at where enrollment has decreased, particularly at the high school level over the years, and look at a way of reducing staff in order to bring about savings to the district and to the budget. So first and foremost is the number was 10, if that's what the question that was asked. And because of the union contract that asked for notification by April 15th, and you may or may not be aware of, but we did put a retirement incentive out that the teachers union agreed to. We have it out with several of our units. And it was only the timing of it that, which we gave a 30-day period for, was getting it out on April 5th and having it returned by May 5th. It didn't allow us to actually project in the budget process, just what the savings would be. So of course there's going to be savings. The budget was put together. There is a final number of 88.1, I think, or 2. Is it 81.2 million? In that, any savings that will come out, you'll see return to either fund balance at the end of the year and or either that or applied to the following year in order to keep the next year's tax rate down. So it's not that we didn't account for it, it's accounted for it in that way. The 10 layoffs, according to the way process is done, is by tenure areas and then by seniority. And so although we looked at reducing staff of 10 at the high school level, because it lets, by example, choose a math teacher, but then the lowest member in that tenure area in 7 through 12 in math may be located at the middle school. That's why you saw effects hitting the middle school. So there were layoffs. They were at the secondary level. They were at the high school where the reductions were needed. In terms of that, it simply means that if that's the person that goes out, then somebody from the high school math department would have to move to the elementary or to this middle school position. In the end, I want to say this clearly, there was never an intent to reduce any programs, and that's not what we did. We simply reduced staff that were being excess due to enrollment decreases, and so our class sizes, as the board had indicated several months ago when I first arrived here, that we were going to go back to the board policies that were in place prior to COVID. And so all that did was allow us then to move some of the staff members around and look at enrollment, and then to say in the end that everybody who moved to those numbers, where would the reductions be? And we also say as a cautionary note that even though it's 10, I started a review, which I had promised I would do, once all of the counts came in, so the high school principal and each of the department heads, our instructional leaders, have been arranging to come in to see me to review the enrollment and what it looks like, as we did today. And as a result of those meetings, there will be obviously a give and take based on the way the enrollment is going. And so some of those numbers may in actuality wind up decreasing. But I went with the best we could do with the numbers we had at hand. And again, because of the union contract that indicated sending layoff notices by April 15th, I had erred on the side of caution by making sure that we had enough of them in there and it would be easier to recall them and put them back as soon as we knew when the budget process was completed and the schedule was set up, that we had indicated that certain people might receive, again, last in, first out. Well, obviously last out, first in, first out, last in comes the other way. And that's what we're in the process of doing now. So by the time all this settles down in June, we will have a number and we will know. And as I said to the board earlier, we will monitor this and we will report to the community just in fact what will the savings be and you'll know it up front, and it'll be wound up putting into the budget process, so you'll know at the end of the year that you have that money put aside in order to apply to the next fund balance. So there was a fund balance applied, it's in the budget book, of $2.59 million, and my goal would be that through the layoffs, teachers, teaching assistants were another area we looked at, as well as the retirement incentives, where some people may be going out of positions that don't have to be replaced. Those savings should equal to at least the 2.59 or better. And that's the goal, and that it's working right now. I can't report on what's exactly happening at this moment. I mean, I know numbers, but I don't want to read it into the record, only because May 5th comes, and that's when we have to make the decision. I can say this, that in the teacher one, we had an agreement that we would have to hit a $1 million savings in order for the thing to be fully executed, and we would know that on May 5th. I can say to you as we speak today, in checking the record this morning without verifying through the business office, just looking at salaries and approximately a 30% on fringe benefits, because that's the way we calculate, we are a hair under 1 million. So I am confident we will hit the $1 million mark, and that will go into play, and then the rest will happen in a similar manner, again, weeks later after May 5th, because those rollouts with the other groups were later, and those deadlines become later. So we will probably know by the end of June. And everything else, by the way, just beside our being consumed by budget and everything else is moving along well as far as the end of the year. We're in the midst of celebrations and things, expressing student work. We're in the middle of state testing that was mentioned earlier, which is the beginning at the elementary level. Of course, high school and all our moving up ceremonies, all of that occurs later in June. So we're on our way doing all of those things. We've been returning to business as usual, and I'm confident that we will wind up in the right place at the end of the year. Thank you.
I had a follow-up question. Sure. So in the programming in the middle school, potentially we might see a high school teacher move down, but there will be no change in the programming at the middle school.
Correct.
And at the high school, from what I understand, some programs may not be offered every single year. But I also understand that certain, there's like tracks or progressions. Mm-hmm. So if you've got a rising 12th grader who's expecting the next class next year, are we guaranteeing that that's going to be held? Yes. Because it's a different thing to say for the incoming 9th graders that there's a different track, exactly. There's different options. But for the current 9th or 11th graders, they have an expectation. And I want to make sure that we're delivering.
We are. And
okay.
The way the pattern will work, I just want to simply mention odd year, even year, and we're trying to implement that. So if I took a year like right now, which next year is obviously an odd year because it's the 23-24 school year. In that odd year, we might, let's pick something, AP art, since we're dealing with art, and the numbers may be on the lower side. So let's say we have 12 or 13 and we run it, we've got seniors there. The following year, we know that's a lower number, and that's probably not a good one to choose because it's not what happens with art. But anyway, it was the wrong one, so apologize. Because in my mind, I'm looking at them, and I know that's not one that happens. But anyway, as long as you're aware that I'm not picking on the art department, I only did it because of the focus here tonight. But anyway, let's just assume that. When we get to the following year, we wouldn't offer it, and then the following year we would offer it, and what happens when you back it up like that, the 12 will wind up being 20 or 30, and then we'll be back at what we consider to be normal numbers, well within our contract language, but being more efficient in terms of what we're delivering so that we don't wind up having extra sections with small numbers in the classroom, which is just as you add every 5 sections as a teacher, you take an average, teacher salary and so on, you might be looking at 100 or 100 and a quarter in terms of benefits and all. So it adds up quickly. If you have 5 or 6 over, you're dealing with $500,000 or so. So that's really the plan, and that's how we're operating.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying.
Is there any other questions?
Oh, I have one more.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the budget season. Do we have any dates and times for budget forums available yet for the community?
I believe we do have another one coming. Do we have any?
The budget
dates?
forums
The budget
were.
forums.
The budget hearing is next May 3rd.
Okay.
That's the next.
But I remember like last year, I remember you and Mr. Harkett are talking with Enrique how you hosted 8 different ones and no one showed up, and you were joking. Are we doing that many this year, or are we only having the one hearing? We don't want to know yet. Okay.
Let me just say by invitation, if there's a group that would like to entertain us, I'm sure we would gladly put the roadshow on and come out and visit and speak to any group in town that would like to do that. I would rather have an invitation and have an audience than for us to simply show up somewhere and then no one shows up. It's a waste of your time, my time, and it is a lot we could be doing. So we're very willing to do it, and we invite any group, any social groups, any groups that want to hear about it. We'll arrange for it. My other district, we would even go into people's homes as long as you can bring a group of 8 or 10 friends around. We'll gladly do that too. I don't mind that at all.
But as of right now, May 3rd is the
Official.
That's our next
budget
meeting,
hearing.
next
Okay,
Wednesday.
thank you.
Yeah, and maybe there's a way to set up 1 or 2 just windows of time at the district office where people
Sure,
can come
yeah,
by.
we could do that too.
And just,
That's a good idea.
send that out there. That way it's not disrupting, you guys can be working, but if people want to come and chat,
I
you
like
can.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because last year we really did host, I think,
And it was
8 meetings and not a single person showed up for them. So it was, it's a lot of time to sit around the library waiting and not working. All right, anything else for your?
No, I'm fine.
All right. All right, with that, we'll move on to our presentations and discussions for this evening, which is centered around our Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES, board election, and administrative budget vote.
So,
Would you like-
yeah, I just want to say a few words. We are part of the Board of Cooperative Educational Services. Ours is Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES. They're located, as you know, in Yorktown. In the state, there are a number of them. I don't remember the exact number there are anymore, but they're throughout the state, and they were set up as boards of cooperative educational services, meaning that whenever you have a program that you wish to do that might have small enrollment, or provide a program that you just physically can't possibly do in your particular school district, you can do it in conjunction with another. And as long as it's at least 2 school districts, you can then get state aid on it, and you run it through BOCES. The contract we just spoke about tonight with the purchase of equipment is just another area where we work in cooperation with BOCES. They'll do large bids, and so we're not only the only ones buying those computers, there are others, and that is the cooperative bidding process. So that also is a part of a cooperative service. And so with that, every year, we are charged an administrative fee from BOCES for its operation. So they do not have the ability to tax. And the only way they can do that is charge the participating district. So we are part of Putnam Northern Westchester is how many districts?
18.
18, because I'm used to the 35 we have in Southern. So there are 18 of them. And so you take their budget and theirs by size and so on, that they arrive at your administrative fee. And that's what we're actually voting on tonight. So we're voting on their budget, which supports us, and then later on, when we vote on our budget on May the 12th, did I get the right date? 16th, wrong one, I knew it was wrong. May 16th, there is an administrative line within that budget, so that's the payment that we would be making to BOCES. So tonight, what the board is doing is simply approving the BOCES budget. And so there are 18 school districts, and they're all around the state. Today was the day for the BOCES vote, so every other school district in the state, all 700 of them or thereabouts, we're voting today on their BOCES budgets as well. And so what we need is a majority of the 18 in order for it to be approved. And that is the purpose of tonight, as well as the election of board members to the BOCES board, which the board now has received all that information. And we do have a video, by the way. I was going to say, to explain the program, but they did a great job of a video, which we have for you to see.
Every student is unique, and every student's path should reflect that. At Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES, we provide learning opportunities for students that enable them to see the road ahead as a bright pathway to success. We teach and encourage students with special needs with support tailored just for them. We provide high school students with the opportunity to get an inside look into a career they might be interested in before they ever even begin to look at colleges. We help students who want to go straight into the workforce get the skills and hands-on experience they need to succeed. We provide forward-thinking professional learning for educators who want to keep current and for those who will lead districts. BOCES Career and Technical Education Center offers more than 40 programs of study in 7 career academies, including communications, hospitality, health, construction, English as a new language, and more. We constantly look to the future to determine what the labor market will be looking for in high school graduates and create programs to prepare students. We are the first in the country to offer a high school program for horizontal directional drilling, the latest technology in a trenchless and environmentally friendly method of installing underground utilities. We also offer an electric vehicle technician course. Our wide range of offerings in career and technical education include sports medicine and physical therapy, cybersecurity and programming, auto mechanics, urban forestry, and much more. New Vision's health and engineering programs provide college-bound students the opportunity for hands-on experience. BOCE's special education programs offer students with a wide array of social, emotional, and learning needs the tools to help them reach their full potential. Pines Bridge is the only public school in the state to offer aquatic therapy. At Pines Bridge, Walden, and Fox Meadow schools and our programs in local school buildings, we provide supports including counseling, physical and occupational therapy, speech therapy, teachers of the deaf and teachers of the visually impaired. These services are provided in a state-of-the-art school setting, complete with music, art, technology, physical education classes, and assemblies. Because teachers never stop learning, BOCE's curriculum and instructional programs provide professional learning, networking opportunities, and a clearinghouse to communicate instructional ideas and changes in state and federal education rules. A curriculum council comprising leaders from across the region identifies specific areas of focus. BOCE's also offers stellar management services through Regional Safety Services and the Center for Educational Leadership. Regional Safety supports districts with health and safety issues, emergency planning, crisis response, chemical management, fire safety, and more. The Center for Educational Leadership provides professional learning for school leaders and partners with colleges and universities such as Harvard, Cornell, Bank Street, Manhattanville, Fordham, and several others. It offers programs such as the Future School Leaders Academy and the doctoral program in educational leadership. PNW BOCE's IT department offers OLAS for K-12 education, the online recruitment system used by more than 600 school districts across New York and in surrounding states. Through its Action Collaborative Network, the Guidance and Child Study Center works with districts to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion through high-level professional learning. The center also helps districts support all students with consulting services in such areas as audiology, assistive technology, behavior, speech, and psychiatry, to name a few. Because learning continues throughout life, our adult and continuing education programs prepare thousands of adults for the workforce each year through literacy training and career and technical education. When districts want to get the word out, they can turn to BOCE's Communications and Creative Services departments for help with messaging, videos, crisis management, and a host of other services. No matter what road they take, families, students, teachers, leaders, and districts can find their path forward to success by looking to Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES.
So, Carmen, for the three candidates, there's no options?
Yeah, correct.
So we just need to approve.
It's not contested.
Okay. Okay, so there are 3 seats, there are 3 seats for the board, and there's only 3 candidates, so we have to just approve them as they are. I need a motion to approve the candidates for BOCES. Motion. Can I have a second? All in favor? Aye. And then we do the budget separately? Yep. All right, I need a motion to approve the Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES budget for 23-24 school year. Second. All in favor? Great. And that is the end of our agenda. Are there any committee reports for the board?
We had safety. I can start off and you can fill in.
Perfect.
Okay. I had to leave early because my kid had a track meet, but I can get us started. So we discussed the Narcan training. The additional 18 staff members were trained, so that including our nurses, 18 plus 9 of staff members who are trained in carrying it, and in case of emergency, they are prepared to use it. And then we just saw that email today about it being where it's being stored in the buildings, right? Dennis, do you want to talk a little bit about that? About
I believe
Lisa?
Lisa's probably better versed than I am on this.
The latest in the Narcan and where we're installing it in the buildings.
So it'll be near the AEDs,
Okay.
as we discussed before, because if there is an issue and we lock it in the nurse's office, no one has access to that. So if we have the AEDs where they are located is near the gym, their boxes should be located there. I don't have authority to do that, that's Mr. Malini.
Right, but it's, the
So-
process is moving
Yeah,
forward.
so we're still waiting for the boxes, but then we have a protocol that the nurses have implemented, so we have a sheet if someone does implement, use Narcan, then there's a whole reporting sheet that we keep on file according to what we need to do for state regulations.
Awesome. Do you have anything else from Narcan?
I think the only thing that we wanted to, I don't have a mic, sorry.
It's right, that one will pick it up.
So I think the only thing we wanted to mention at the meeting was our policy currently calls for 1 year recertification, but currently the New York State policy is every other year. So I think we should amend our policy to reflect the recertification to coincide with New York State Department of Health law. No sense in making people recertify quicker than is required by law. We should mimic them, not, I don't see the benefit there. I think also there was a question, and it came down to, we should probably run it by Stephanie Roebuck, was a parent had asked their child took a Narcan safety course and is now New York State certified, and was wondering if they are allowed to bring the Narcan to school with them. And the response given, and this is not an official statement because I don't know, we need to clear it up with Stephanie Roebuck, was that public health law 3309 protects civilians when administering Narcan.
The Good Samaritan law.
Also, yes, and I guess the biggest component of this is for anyone paying attention and following at home, if you do have a circumstance that occurs and you do have Narcan on your person and you are able to administer it to help save somebody's life, it is incredibly important you still dial 911 and report it, because what happens is Narcan is basically blocking your receptors from interacting with the opiate, which could cause the shutdown of your body's function. And there could be more of the opiate in your body than the Narcan can counteract. So it's incredibly important you still dial 911 because you could have someone re-enter this overdose phase if the drug overpowers the Narcan. So even if you give two, if they have too much, this fentanyl stuff that's floating around or whatever, it's really, really important. No matter what happens, you give Narcan, please dial 911 immediately.
I have a question. Does the child have to be 18?
That's why I wanted to check with Stephanie Roebuck to make certain. But also, Narcan is soon going to be an over-the-counter. If it's not already, I understand that by this summer, it's going to be an over-the-counter drug. You will no longer even need certification. It's going to be something that you could go to your local drugstore and just apply, just ask for it, and they're going to give it to you. I think the law has passed. I'm just not sure that it is currently effective yet for over-the-counter distribution.
Okay. The next thing we talked about was safety drills, continuing ongoing safety drills, and then working with the district office. So we always drill our 5 schools, but we don't necessarily drill, there's not the requirement to drill the district office and the individuals working there. So working with Alteris to make sure that those processes are smooth. And then we went into the district-wide safety plan at a committee level, going through the changes that were either state required or suggested, so that we can get that out to the public for a public review within the next couple of weeks. And that's when I had to leave. What else you got?
That was
Okay.
pretty much the end of the meeting.
Okay.
So it sounds like the policy committee's gonna have to look over the Narcan policy to possibly tweak that. But also, we have some ideas for creating some new committees, and we actually don't have a policy about creating committees, so we need to do that also. So in the coming board meetings, you should hear a lot about different types of committees the board wants to develop and how we're gonna actually establish them so that they are a real part of the district, and no matter who comes and goes from the board, that they exist. Anybody have anything else to report?
Speaking of a committee, we
This year we established a curriculum committee. It's really like a subgroup, sort of to make sure that we're all kind of up to speed. And we've been meeting with monthly with Lisa and Margaret. This week, last week, Dr. Laura joined us. And it's really to teach us a little bit about, because we ask a lot of questions at the table, and I think that's been really good this year. But it helps us to understand what our children are working on, the academic goals, to let them know what we're looking to show the public and to understand about our students. And this week, it was last week, I guess, a couple of things came up, and I know they came up also at SEPTA, but I want Margaret, if you could explain the ELA pilot, because I know that people have been waiting for this.
I'll use my teacher voice.
Yeah.
So our elementary division next year will engage in an ELA pilot. That means that 2 teachers on each grade level will experience a new ELA program, reading, writing, word study. The teachers selected 2 programs, Into Reading and Wonders. We have the names of the teachers who will be piloting. The teachers who are not piloting continue with our current curriculum. I am in the process right now of creating the process for the pilot, how we will report out to each other, how we will report out to the board about progress, in the hopes of making a recommendation to the superintendent and the Board of Education, probably early May of next year. So they will be receiving their information, boxes and boxes of goodies within the next couple of weeks. There will likely be some PD over the summer as we prepare to engage in this process during the 23-24 school year.
I think that's great. Thank you. And then the other thing that only because it changed and we learned about it at the subcommittee and then you clarified a little bit more for us, are the additions where the ABC students might be moving next year as opposed to where they are now. And there's a couple of other programs that you had mentioned. Yep.
The Anchor program is going into the high school. We're finding more and more that our students that are neurodivergent are really struggling. Secondary, we're focusing on the high schools. We're seeing the biggest impact right now there. We do have a plan in place to do something informally at the middle school with a speech therapist and a psychologist. However, the Anchor program is a home base for students. If they have a free class period, they will be joining Mrs. Donahue, who will be moving from the middle school to the high school. And she will set up schedules, she will work collaboratively with the counselors and with the classroom teachers and support them socially, emotionally, as well as academically, along hand in hand with a school psychologist and Mrs. Klukowski, who is our speech therapist at the high school. So there'll be a lot of groupings, there'll be a lot of support for students. We're finding that that's the hardest transition is from 8 to 9, and then as they keep getting older, as students keep getting older. What was the other thing? Oh, ABC. So ABC at BV, we tried to put the kids as many classrooms together. You want to group students that are similar, so they have more social experience, more community-based instruction, CBI as we call it. So next year, one of the thoughts on the table that I've talked to Dr. Laurel about is moving the BV class over to the Furnace Woods, since there'll be more space, and allow them to have more interaction. They have access to the middle school kitchen, which all of our kids now will have access to a kitchen, which is very important with ADLs, the daily living skills. So that's our plan for next year right now. Is that it? I think those are the 2 things, right?
And maybe the counselors, are going to be now a counselor moving to the elementary school for transition support or something? Was that something mentioned at SEPTA, or did I imagine it?
There is going to be, it'll be a flurry of moves, the way it works. So we have a lot of counselors, school counselors at the high school and middle school, and we don't have enough at the elementary. They have a caseload, and the caseload that's recommended by New York State is about 250 to 1. And our elementary counselors are still dealing with about 450 apiece. So our goal next year is to put 1 in each building and will help with the transitions, but also there's that extra support and social emotional learning curriculum that'll be done by them, so that our counselors are not split so thinly. So right now, Mrs. Bolin is moving from 6th grade, or currently 8th grade this year. She has asked to go down to the elementary school. She's very excited to go to grades 2, 3, which is so exciting. So we will then figure out what we're going to do with the middle school for next steps.
I have a question about the Anchor program. Are those students identified by staff or parent identified, or how would a student get select that
Yes,
program?
all of those.
Okay.
It's also an IEP-based program, so it would be based on their IEP and the needs of their IEP.
Okay. But if a parent's listening and they think, oh, that might be helpful, they could reach
Yes,
out. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Where does that live at the high school? Like, where
As
do
far
the-
as,
how do the kids know to go, where it spaces at?
so that's what Mrs. Donahue will do, she's very good at that. So how it'll start is they're going to their typical classes, it's when they have free periods, she's their go-to person.
They go to her classroom.
Exactly. She may push into classes too,
Oh, great.
especially lunch, because lunch is a hard time. The noise, all of that is very difficult for our students. Hey, Cor.
Yeah.
It's all right. All good? Okay. I just have a quick question. So there have been a couple committees that I've been asking for a number of years, and just because we've had other priorities, we haven't gotten to them. So I just want to make sure that they stay on your radar.
Yeah.
So one is an administrative technology committee. So we have a technology committee that
Yep.
focuses on educational technology.
Okay.
But we don't have a technology committee that focuses on our internal systems, on student data protection, on information security, on our internal networks, our DAS service, the digital array for cell networking. So things like that, we don't have anything that looks at that kind of technology where we should make investments. So I would love for that to be a focus. A second one would be an administrative risk management committee. So really looking at things like financial controls within the district, or again, controls over some of our key data, employee data, student data, how a lot of that is managed. So I think an administrative risk management committee and an administrative technology committee would be really great things to focus on
Yep.
in the future.
Yeah, I want to look at the committees that we currently have and clean up what their functions
Yep.
are, right? And kind of revamp this a little bit. So that's great. Thank you.
Sure.
Maybe we can also talk about what they would look like,
Mhm.
where we could have community involvement in some
Right.
of our committees that we haven't.
Right. Like our safety committee talks about actual internal safety things that pertain to the district that we can't have the public in on. It's just dangerous, right? So there are committees that we want to bring different stakeholders into where we can. So that's what Jen means. Yeah, that's great. All right. Any new business or board comments?
Facility use, I know we talked about this in small groups offline, it was part of the workshop. There was conversation about utilizing the buildings properly, lack of bathrooms in buildings. How do we have the conversation about what grade banding group should be reporting to which building? For example, I think there's 16 classrooms with bathrooms in BV, there's 17 in Furnace Woods, and there's 12 in Frank G. So the result is we have kindergartners with gang bathrooms and taking buddies to go to the bathroom. When do we have that conversation about utilization of facilities for appropriate educational setting?
So you're talking about for this coming year, or for the foreseen future, or for the forever future?
I guess all of it. We have acknowledged, I think, that there's an issue currently, and we're continuing with the current model, so we should address whether we're okay putting kids in the wrong building again. We then need to also consider the utilization of the buildings as we start this conversation, which would be the more long-term
Right.
conversation for this December 6th vote or whatever. I think that's
Yeah.
both short and long-term.
So I do think that one of the committees that we're looking to create is one for
Right.
what elementary school model will look like, right?
Yep.
And I think that it would address that concern for the future after next year.
But not for September.
But not for September. So if the first September discussion would have to be a decision amongst the board, or a discussion amongst the board.
Sure. I don't know the process to make sure that happens.
There's really no process. I don't think,
Put it
is
on
there?
the agenda for the next meeting.
No, I mean,
Is
you
there-
can have it, you can bring it up at any time. It's a discussion
Yeah,
item.
it's board discussion. It can, I don't think that it's even really an agenda item per
Okay.
se, unless it's something that the board needs to explore or present on,
Sure.
you know? I don't think there's a formal way. I think it's a discussion amongst the board.
Okay. now, later?
I mean, let's
I mean, I've
start
shared.
it.
Yeah, that was the beginning, I think, right? That was the initiation of the
Can you be a little bit
conversation.
more specific just for people who are maybe not in
Yeah,
our,
so we
in
have
our
three
heads?
elementary buildings.
Yeah.
We have Frank G. Lindsay, BV, and Furnace Woods. We have pre-K, K and 1 in Frank G. We have 2 and 3 in BV, and we have 4 and 5 in Furnace Woods. The biggest building is Frank G, both in terms of classroom size, if I understand correctly. But it also has the fewest number of classrooms with bathrooms in them, and that tends to be the facility structure that is best suited for the youngest learners. So Furnace Woods is one of the smaller buildings and also has the largest number of classrooms that have bathrooms in them. New York State guideline is to have a bathroom in the classroom for all kindergartners, and we currently have 3 of our 7 or 8 kindergarten classrooms which are not in the, or that are operating without a bathroom in the classroom. But if we had the appropriate use of facilities for that structure, it would have made sure that 100% of those classrooms would have had a bathroom, and regardless of the building's year being built, it still would have put them within the guidance of New York State.
And there's other issues like the community spaces, right? Whether the
Yeah, the biggest gym and the biggest cafeteria in
Right.
Frank G with also the biggest kids.
The biggest art room,
Right.
and there's more blacktop at Frank G as well. And they have access to the high school field.
I mean, I would want to hear from our administrators, and you guys weren't expecting this, so maybe you're not prepared to discuss it tonight. But I think it would be important to hear from our administrators and hearing our concerns and how it might work, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, Dr. Rivera wasn't here for this part, but I'm not quite sure how it came to be this way, right? I wasn't on the board. I don't know how the buildings were selected, if there was an idea in mind that we're missing the
Right.
point of.
Thank you, yeah.
Right, like, I don't know.
I think Anthony Merlini, the head of our facilities, had recommended a flop of Furnace Woods and Frank G when he had suggested the utilization of facilities for each of the grades. So I don't know why someone took a path other than the one that he had laid out. That was before my time. I wasn't in on the conversation. I don't recall that being a board table conversation.
It was not.
It was not.
So I don't know why. I can't speak to the choice, but I think it's appropriate. I think it's important that we currently now discuss that because I'm not very comfortable with the current arrangement.
Do you want us to say something?
I don't know, if you know, if you have any
I mean, there were many
input.
reconfiguration processes. I think honestly, the back and forth with Frank G and Furnace Woods it was always, I think, BV 2-3, I think, if I remember correctly. I hate to speak for people who aren't here, but I'll say what I'm going to say. Initially, when the conversation got started, I recommended that pre-K, K1 be at Furnace Woods. I believe that the superintendent and other people felt that the proximity to the middle school presented kind of a one-campus view for 4 through 8. And they also felt that having the pre-K1 building kind of in the center of the community balanced the extremes, both giving up something for travel. So that's the best way that I can explain it. Am I missing something that?
I think, like, that's what I've been thinking all along, really. I think I've said this to multiple people on the board, but I felt like Frank G being pre-K, K1 was really, I mean, think about it, they're the youngest, and the upset that we're hearing from those that live on the outskirts, right? It's hard. It's hard to put your baby on a bus and send them a long distance. And I think that the majority of students do live closer to FGL than Furnace Woods. So that's kind of been my rationale. You know, it would probably have upset more people if you said all your little ones are gonna go out to Brooklyn Manor. So, but we are here. We are here, we are where we are now. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in.
Well, I think that we've heard from parents that children are having accidents, and that concerns me because young children get very embarrassed by that and they don't want to go to school. So any kind of school avoidance issue is something that would concern me. So the question is, do you then want to put money into a building and add on bathrooms to outfit them for the configuration that you've now done. So, I mean, that's something that could be on the table. If
But then
that's
we're,
not,
I don't know if that's it on the table, because then we end up taking room. I don't think in the BCS that's ever actually addressed in those classrooms, because you're taking too much classroom space from those classrooms, in the front of those Frank G. Lindsay classrooms. Like that's not even part of our conversation.
And that's a long term. We're still talking about September too, right? About,
Yes. But she's saying not to add any money long-term, like, I don't think that is even part of our conversation, because we take up way too much classroom space.
Well, I guess, I mean, it could be, because I don't think we've gone that far yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I think,
But they have to be
I think these
handicap
are,
accessible, that's the issue, right?
they do, and none of the ones that are.
Because we're grandfathered in as is.
Right. All of the in-classroom bathrooms would need to be addressed if we were to renovate them.
I guess what I don't understand about how this was chosen is, like, at the end of the day, like, the dream of having Blue Mountain and Furnace Woods work together, that's a great dream, and on the same campus. I think that was something that was to aspire to, but when you have only 10 bathrooms at Frank G., it's only 10, Jeremy, 16 at Furnace Woods, and 17 at BV, and you know that you have 16 at minimum sections of each. What we basically did is we put the K-1 kids in the building where we knew they weren't going to have what they needed. In the largest cafeteria, the largest gym, the largest everything.
2 floors.
And I'm sure that the staff have managed with not having bathrooms, but now we're talking about adding an ABC classroom there next year. So that means another kindergarten class now has to go to the front hallway. So now we have 4 kindergarten classes without bathrooms.
Where?
That's if it's
You're
the same
gonna-
number
no,
of
you're gonna
sections.
move to
No, Frank G, no, because you said we're adding an ABC class in Frank G.
But we may have more, we may
No,
have less.
then I misspoke, I'm sorry,
Okay.
Furnace Woods,
Yeah, Furnace Woods.
that's my fault.
Okay,
Sorry.
All right, because I was like, oh my
No,
gosh.
no, sorry.
And the other thing is they're separated, like in the building, like the kindergartners, and this might not bother the staff, I don't know, this is part of the thing, I think they got used to it this year, but they're separated, so.
You can't put them together though. We've tried that. I was a principal too. You try grade level hallways, but then you lose a section, you gain 2 sections. Eventually you end up respreading across the building. That's hard. It's hard to keep them.
Yeah, the
nice.
first grade is completely upstairs, and they're also downstairs.
Yeah. It's really, I mean, it's ideal. I won't lie to you. I loved it as an administrator, but it is really hard as the role of sections continues to adjust each year to make sure that you can have that, unless you want people to continually relocate. So I agree with you. It's not perfect, but you have to work with the building that you have, so.
I know, and that's what I'm saying, we put ourselves in that.
Well, that's why,
In that
yeah,
building.
I don't know
working with the
if
buildings
you
we
use that
have
all in
seems
one
like
hallway.
not
If
this.
you imagine, there's only 2 hallways in Furnace Woods.
Yeah, that's not terrible.
So, you know, I don't know that we could have all fit 9 first grade classrooms in a hallway. I don't have the classroom numbers memorized, but it's tricky for the principals to kind of lay that out and stick with it.
the vision of using Furnace Woods in the middle school as one campus, how much have we actually done that?
You have to talk to Josh and Lauren. I
Okay.
can't speak for them.
I'd want to know how much we've been able to
Yep.
make that vision happen.
The music is where it really,
Yeah.
when they
And remember,
when they
Lauren is
performed.
new, so she probably doesn't have that vision yet, so she is new.
Okay.
So what do you do to solve the problems with the kids who don't have enough bathrooms in their classes for next year? What's the immediate solution?
Well-
A quick fix? So all kids have access to a bathroom and no one's having accidents in their pants. Do you put a portable, I mean, something to fix it?
More bathroom breaks. What's that? So more bathroom breaks.
Can we, I'm just
Can
saying,
I ask if is there any data around how many more accidents we have now versus than we normally do?
I believe
So
I
understand
shared
it
a
was normal.
document
Yeah.
with Dr. Laurel that was directly from the nurse and Cindy, Dr. Kramer. And I believe if I'm accurate, so this was probably 2 months ago, I think, Alexis, right?
I don't know that I actually saw it, but I remember Dr.
Yeah.
Kramer getting the information.
And I believe in it said, really the accidents are not in the pre-Ks, or not, some of the kids have bathrooms in their classrooms. So we've got to be careful on how we're generalizing that, but I don't think it was any more than what they had when they had smaller sections.
The summary that I got was that the accidents were not attributed to the bathroom not being in the room. It was, they're 5, it happens, or they got so into playing with their friends they didn't want to stop and use the bathroom, whatever. I think, honestly, the bigger issue is that when they do need to use the restroom, like the first graders or some of the kindergartners, like they have to actually leave on their own and go to the restroom. And then there's,
That's why they have a TA,
That's part
right?
of the reason.
yeah, I don't know,
Yeah.
right? I'm not sure,
But they do
but.
buddies, right? So I have a first grader,
I
right?
can't,
I don't know that.
I don't know, I can't,
So
I can
I'll
find
let
out
you know,
for us,
yeah.
but I can't speak for it.
Could we maybe get our
They
questions
take
together?
friends to the bathroom.
Right, so what questions will we have for Dr. Kramer, what will we have for all the principals?
Yeah, how can you?
Right, how do we make
yeah.
it better?
Yeah.
I just don't want to talk about a problem that we don't really have, right? That if it's not really any different in that situation, that's not the problem. The problem is more so on the buddy side or going alone. How do we fix the problem that we actually have at hand?
Not having classroom doors locked with kids inside because kids are going to the bathroom, which we know is not
What-
safety
whatever,
recommendation. Those kind of
whatever
items.
the
Yeah, yeah, all
problems
of
are,
them.
right?
Yeah,
We just
all
want
of
to
them.
make sure that we have real problems that we're addressing and we have data behind them. I don't want to be talking about conjecture.
No, Corey, I just want to tell you, conjecture is one thing, but you have to realize that you have 2 first grade families at this table, right? So it's not so much conjecture as their kids' experience.
No, I
I
realize
understand
that.
what you're
I'm
saying, but
that.
we can't diminish that this is actually,
But from what I'm hearing, it's not that they're having accidents because they don't have a bathroom in the room.
no, and my
That's not
issue
the
is not,
issue.
honestly, my issue personally is not that it's the bathroom problem. The fact of the matter is the building is not appropriate for 5 and 6-year-olds. And the other building this building is more appropriate for 9 and 10-year-olds.
Yeah, I'm happy to
And that's
talk
where
about
I'm
that,
at.
right? I don't want to talk about
Yeah,
the problem that, the data is not showing that.
I don't know, I don't want to diminish the people that wrote in and say that what they said is not a problem. I mean, we had
I'm
several
not-
people write in.
yeah, but
I want to acknowledge that we hear their concerns and we're looking into it. Not that the data doesn't support it, so forget it. Well, I'm here, we hear you, we're looking into it, and you're acknowledged.
No, that's absolutely fair. I did see a couple of emails on that, and, of course you feel for the families and you feel for the kids. But if we're talking about 2 incidents over the course of the year, is that really so much that we have to pick up and move 2 schools back and forth because of that issue? That's probably not the issue.
Absolutely.
I think it's more the issue of what Erica's talking about and what Jeremy's talking about. Those are the issues that
I think it's a whole,
would be.
I think there's a host of issues, and I think it would be irresponsible to try to funnel it to an issue. And I think it comes down to basically facility utilization, and then the conversation could circle around all of the components that would indicate why building A is appropriate for this group and building B and building C accordingly. That's really, I don't think that any of us are gonna say that it's one thing. I think it's a multitude of problems that exist, and
I think all of the work that we are, by the way, we're working on outlining a plan for the elementary school. What do we want to call it? But our plan is going to outline exactly the type of events, the types of committees, the type of work, all of that. So once we have that, we will share it. But I think that in those conversations, naturally it's going to come out that even if you kept with 2-year grade banding, you can't keep it this way. There's so many challenges in terms of the bathroom thing is really one piece of many.
so my point is, if that is true,
Yeah.
then why do we need to wait and make more kids be in the wrong building?
So if you want me to answer that,
Yeah, in general. Yeah.
you mean why do we have to wait, do this in September again? Right?
If we're potentially.
Because for me personally as a trustee I'm nervous to even consider making any changes if we're going to be considering making changes, right? So I feel like we are where we are now, and I have made it very clear that the things that I don't like and the things that I do like. And I think that if we're gonna go through and do all of this great work with the different stakeholders and possibly come up with, whatever the plan is for the future of Hen Hut Elementary School, I hate to make any change now and then make another change, right? That's my worry and that's my fear, as an individual. I agree. I do think that FGL should have never been, and they should be blocked, and I think it would have solved a lot of the facilities issues. But I don't know that we can make a change until we go through all of the things that we intend to do.
So maybe we should outline these things and have
Yeah, like I want
prepared to lay it all out and then at
Yeah.
some point vote, because at the same time, I think we should look at the odds. If we don't think it's right and we think we're gonna make some change, we should look at how many plans are there gonna be and what's the likelihood. If there's an 80% chance that if we're gonna put 5 plans on the table and only one that would leave us in the current model, the only one would be a model that would be K-5 and there's gonna be 4 more plans that are all banding, we're all gonna agree that if we're gonna do some banding in the future, whether it's what we have or some modification, and it's always gonna put the oldest kid at Frank G, then it wouldn't necessarily, the likelihood of us being in a future system that allows for the oldest kids to be in a singular building, it would make sense that why not just do that now
But
instead
we
of
don't know
perpetuating.
we don't know what's gonna happen in December.
Right,
Yeah.
so I said, but if there's 80% chance that it's gonna be some form of this, if there's gonna be
Oh, I see.
5 plans,
Playing that.
then why would we, yeah, exactly right.
I'd want to hear.
Because I don't feel comfortable telling more people that they're gonna continue. The other problem is, Furnace Woods, the parents that complain the most with the longest bus rides were the farthest out on the district on the other side of Furnace Woods, right? Those kids have the longest bus rides.
Mhm.
So having that as the youngest kid building, it makes the youngest kids generally have a much similar bus ride as opposed to a very long bus ride and then a not as long bus ride
Yeah,
with Frank.
I'd want to get some feedback from Liz Gillia about
Yeah.
what it would look like for maybe the first graders, the kindergartners that live out in Verplank and Buchanan, coming all the way to Furnace
Yeah.
Woods. I'd want to.
That's not an issue, because it's only 8 miles. Like, no matter what you do, coming from where we live down here to Furnace Woods, it's only 8 miles. When you live above that, to come down,
Okay.
you're
Yes.
like,
Yeah, I know what you're
it's
saying.
like, I can get to Furnace Woods from here in 10 minutes, like, it's 8 to 10 minutes, it's not that far. But when you're coming from up there down here is what the problem is.
Because it's further.
I mean, you can ask Liz to clarify that, but
Yeah.
that's how he was explained to us.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you.
Thank you for a fair discussion, I appreciate it.
I just want to make sure that I understand the board's ask here, because I'm a little confused. What is the best next step for this discussion? Like, I don't want parents at home listening just going, oh no,
They're gonna move.
now
it
what's
to
next
this
year
year.
look like, right? So I just want to make sure, like, is this something that the board is, like, where are we going with this right now, today?
Can I just say, I think it's a data point for the future discussion. Like,
Okay.
as you get the committees together,
Mhm.
as you start to think about what the future looks like, keep things the way they are for next year, as you're working with the committees to figure out what's the long-term plan. So to your point, to make changes again for this year, I think would be very, very challenging for this district, right?
Well, I would pray that they were a change in the right direction, but we also have 2 potentially new board members joining. Like, we have
Right.
yet to have these events. Like, we really don't know what's to come.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So-
Don't, maybe just use these as data points for discussions for the committees going forward, but don't make any changes for next year at this point.
Thanks,
Just ask the teachers if there's a simple fix.
I was gonna say, can we ask,
Yeah.
just ask Cindy and
Ask them if
Yep.
they have any
if she
suggestions.
can, yeah,
on
give
what
us
would
some
help.
ideas.
Yeah.
Okay. This is really a Mr. Cohen, Dr. Kramer ask.
I also think to add to this, I think we need to really show parents sooner rather than later that the bus rides from above Furnace Woods and Blue Mountain are actually going to be under 40 minutes.
So
We have to
for
we have to show
next year's
that.
bus routes, is there a way to find out from
Liz?
Liz?
What they are? We're not there yet, but
Right.
soon we're gonna have them.
Well, I'm asking because last year it was this time of year, parents got a little insight, but no concrete information, and then they waited until far into August to know what the bus routes were. And that was like tremendous anxiety with the change. So is there a way that we can get bus routes done by a nice
And the
early
projection
date?
and the actual were not close. So
Time?
like, yeah,
Okay.
right? So we need to make sure that whatever we're giving is real and practical, not what it can't be like a wishful thinking
Right.
estimate.
Yeah.
We need to
It has
let
to be
people
ac-
know,
closer
and
to actual.
maybe they need to drive it and pause at the stops and, take the long ones and
Well,
make sure.
something that people were also upset about last year and last summer in August was their bus pickup time was 8:15. My child's gonna be on the bus for 45 minutes. School doesn't start till 9. But little did they know the bus was 18 minutes and they would have playtime before they went into school. So I'm pretty sure the answer is you can't know what time the bus arrives to the school, but it would be awesome if parents knew that.
Also, I think it really was, last year, just to take a note here, it resonated with me that parents did not know where their child was going first.
No, that was the
That
worst
was the
decision we could have
really-
ever made. So the
We
first
need
day
to
of
notify
school.
somehow parents to know which building their bus is going to first,
Yeah.
whether it's BV or Frank G. Lynch.
So what happened was
So we're gonna
last year
continue
the.
this.
No,
this-
I think
Or
that's.
are we not doing that?
We're trying, I think with the proposition
Or we
to
don't have to do that?
purchase, we're trying to get away from
Oh,
this.
that's good.
From what? Having to
The
do,
the delivery to the other, again, we were trying to get the runs to be specific to the buildings.
oh, okay, so that's good. So what
Not-
happened last year was that the children would get
I
on the
know,
bus.
it's some lower that every now
And the new kindergartners didn't know whether they were going to BV or FGL first, and they, got all upset, and, it just was extra excitement that was not needed.
Just a word of caution. For least this takes a long time. Usually parents get their bus schedules at the end of August with the whole package from the principal. What Liz is committed is to have it by August 15. Unfortunately, anything before that is going to be dropped.
Why? Because people move
Because
in, they
it
register
takes-
late, right?
Because it takes time, the drivers have to go, do the route, do the stopping. That's in addition to the day-to-day work of Liz. Liz has a day-to-day work, and this is rerouting. Now, first she cannot stop until we know that the 4 buses will pass.
Yes.
She has, on a day-to-day basis, has dismissals, has her own work. So for her, she cannot start until June.
Well, I think either way, we have to wait until after the May vote and know where we are at with our equipment, right? And if Liz needs help, we'll figure out how to get
Yes,
help.
I was gonna say.
I just,
Actually, so you know,
Yes.
she's already getting help. The prior, from someone from here, a community member who was the director of transportation for 25 years before I came here, but he stayed and he's still here, and he's going to start working with Liz.
Do we have an expert in our routing? Because I would love to have an expert in the routing system, because just from what I've seen in other districts, they rely very heavily on the routing system.
Oh,
right?
here too.
And, right, so we know that 80% of our routes are pretty certain. We can do 80% of our routes with the understanding that we don't know exactly who's coming in, and there might be some changes of people moving in and out of the district, but for the most part, probably 80%.
that was the
It's
case,
gonna
but
be-
with Princeton, there was a consultant that did the routes. They were not regionalized. So Liz, knowing the district better, wants to, I think, right, am I?
No, that's
What I'm
correct.
saying
Yeah.
is get her professional help that could help her automate this so that it's not so manual, right? So
Yeah,
that-
No,
they
they
have a
automate
system.
all these. We have a routing system that they use, Kathy and.
Then why does it take so long then
I'll-
to get the routes? Because if it's fully automated, it should
Take
be a
students
fairly
and spit
quick
it out.
exercise,
And
right?
I guess I sort of
agree, I'm not saying that we need it. I think August 15th, it seems a little late. I think we could have an earlier target. I'd like to know, we could, if we
Why
can
don't we
pick it.
do this?
Yeah, talk to her.
Why don't we bring Liz here in our next board meeting so she can tell us? I mean, she was, Dennis told me, she was very concerned when we said before August 15th.
No,
So
that was the most we could get out of her.
maybe she can tell you exactly why. I don't know the details. Answers like this, if 80%, but she will know.
Yeah.
And she will be able to say, well, you know, I exaggerated, maybe it's July 30, or maybe not.
Or maybe we have an expert come in with her that could help her answer the questions, or say, you know, you might not know how to do this, but we could help you do this, right? Or maybe there's a better way that we don't have in the district that we never thought of before, right? I'm just saying it would be good to have someone.
And we already
From the
hired
outside.
that person. What you need really is someone that knows and understands the streets in the community, because you know there's certain streets that buses cannot go through.
Right. But that's
And
not
the
the
guy
system?
from the outside.
But wouldn't that be in the system?
No.
You
It's,
can't flag, all right.
I'm
We can
just
talk about
telling
that.
you,
I would
yeah.
think that you'd be able to flag, this road
I
cannot
can-
be turned around in, that's in the system, therefore you have to bypass this particular road.
let's have Liz here. I've never seen the system.
Let's ask Dennis and Enrique, and maybe talk to Liz, decide if she needs to come here, you could report back to us. I don't,
And I think
you decide.
another ask around all of this topic, I think it's important for the community, regardless of what committee we have or don't have, what the principal's plans are in September to make sure that entry into the system is more smooth, right? We know we have transition plans with guidance counselors and things like that. What's that gonna look like for kids? How is lunch gonna look for kids? How are their cohorts gonna look? Are they gonna be with more kids than they were? Like, what is, I know we have goals, and because we've heard from families and parents, I'd like to hear what their plan is to get more children in the cafeteria together, more kids at recess together. Any way that we can departmentalize children, if there's any way we can look at, you know, the possibility of enrichment that we were told was a possibility, is that possible? Things like that.
Yeah, we're working on getting the principals in. They usually do a presentation before the end of the year, so we can,
Yeah, but that presentation is for what this year was like. I'm looking for, I wanna know
Yeah,
what.
it doesn't have to be anything.
Yeah.
We were, Carmen and Dr. Laura and I were talking about how can we kind of revamp the principals and their presentations so that the community gets more of what they're looking for. So we're working on that. I'm not even sure, we haven't figured out a date, but as soon as we do, we will discuss with the principals and let the community know what nights will be who. Because that would be great, right? This is what happened this year, this is what worked well,
We need
next
a-
year.
We need a plan.
Yeah.
Have the kids that are transitioning been to their new schools yet? Or do you know at what time they will be visiting?
I heard some talk that they were
I
doing.
know that counselors have been to the school and social worker psychologists have gone and
Two.
principals have. I believe the
I don't
dates
think
are all
the
set up
students
because
moved yet.
they were talking about it in my office yesterday, amongst themselves because they're setting up their transition plans too.
We can certainly ask that at our meeting tomorrow.
That'd be great.
I know they have them, I
Yeah.
just don't know them off the top of my head.
Okay, it'd be nice to give parents, that heads up, so they
I
are
would hope
expecting.
they have, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
we should imagine.
Yeah, I don't know.
No.
No, apparently.
I think that parents just knowing when it's gonna happen
Yeah.
and how it's gonna happen will be good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And are there committees amongst the staff, like the teachers, to talk about transition plans like we did last year? Because last year we had, there was like a transition team, right, of staff that worked together on ideas to bring the kids together. Is that happening this year?
Not that I know of, but
Say that again, I'm
tomorrow
sorry.
we'll ask.
Last year there was a committee of staff that worked together on a transition plan, come up with different ideas. We had the field day,
Yep.
we had all these different,
The lettering campaign.
Are we, is there still that committee, and is that
I'm adding it to my agenda for tomorrow.
with staff?
Is there a field day yet? I thought I-
Yes.
There
Yes.
still was.
I thought I
Yes,
saw something.
yes, already saw the dates flying back and forth. I know that the teachers have been working in their buildings with their grades on ideas both for, obviously through this whole year and for next year. May 15th is an early release day for K-8, and that, I believe, is the major focus of that day.
Okay.
And that will be not just, by the way, elementary, Elisa's shaking her head, thank you, Elisa. Not just for the internal, but also that's a big day, it always has been a big day, it's a transition 5-6. So even with the middle school, the right teachers will be talking to the receiving teachers about what's going on. Yes.
We, a while ago, had a presentation where we talked about the benchmarks that we were going to use to measure the Princeton plan, and we came up with a bunch of metrics. Can we maybe have a presentation that goes over some of the preliminary internal measurements that have taken place and present to the community? I mean, we kind of got off topic from that, and I know we laid out metrics, and I know some of those metrics are available now. So I really think that the community deserves that presentation so they can sit as well as us.
Well, the date was always before June 30th, so we just need to get it on the on an agenda before June 30th.
So we're saying before June 30th.
That was our board goal that we voted on in October.
So are we gonna shoot just for a meeting in June?
Yeah, I think we've got 4 meetings left, so Alexis, Dr. Lowe.
Yeah, no, we would do that. We're just waiting for we're in the middle of state testing, so those results will get preliminary data, and so we're right in the middle. It will get on the agenda.
Okay.
Oh, you get preliminary data from
There's
them?
preliminary data.
I know we don't get actual.
No, we don't get the actual.
Yeah, but I know we have some iReady scores.
No.
That's what I mean, right.
That's not even a discussion.
No.
Oh, so you're saying you're gonna use other?
Well, I
We
believe,
have-
correct me if I'm wrong, Stephanie, we were talking about the local benchmarks
Right.
that we use.
Yes.
Say it as
Underlying
that.
math, we were
Okay.
talking about attendance, behavior, referrals.
PTA involvement,
Correct,
Yeah.
that kind of
parental
stuff, social
engagement,
workers,
things that you could
yes,
measure and
yes,
compare.
Okay.
So if I could say this, at our May meeting, could we just make sure we're on the same page with
Yeah.
the list?
Yes.
Because like some of the things you just brought up would not be things we would have access to. I don't have PTA attendance.
Yeah. It was from the January 4th meeting, so we just have to revisit those slides.
But it doesn't mean we couldn't get it
But
from
we
the
have,
right person.
right.
And I don't even know if they keep track of that.
It should be in their minutes.
So
So
the
if-
PTA is gonna be invited.
Everybody knows.
So I think
I
the
was
5 of
thinking if
us
we
could like
aligned
get on
it,
the same page with what we're
elementary school
looking to
principals,
report on.
elementary-
Yes.
Okay.
When I figure out the dates. We're gonna invite the PTAs back as well. And in my mind, I'm thinking when we invite the elementary school principals, we'll try to get the elementary PTA. And maybe they can handle that portion and it doesn't even have to fall on your plates.
And we're gonna hear from the middle school and high school principals as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then we would ask that PTA to come on that night. So it's kind of like yeah. So we'll get that organized and then we'll reach out to everybody. People may be hearing it here first. So.
The transition dates for Frank G to BV are in May, and BV to Furnace Woods are also in May. I don't have the specific dates, but they're all set for May, so I'm sure the principals, after our meeting tomorrow, will send out their letters.
Okay. Awesome. That's great. All right, anything? Anybody else? No? All good? No? All right, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Till next week.
All right. Our next meeting is next Wednesday, May 3rd. We're in May already. Next Wednesday, May 3rd, back at the high school at 7 p.m.
I may not be, it depends what time I fly by.
Okay, got it. Can I have a motion to close the meeting? Motion to close. Can I second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.